My aunt took me in for 2 summers. 20 years later she sued me for half my house. Posted to r/am ithasshole. I've been staring at this legal letter for 3 days now. It sits on my kitchen table, next to my cold coffee and the remnants of meals I barely remember eating. The letterhead is crisp, professional, the kind of document that demands to be taken seriously. And I do take it seriously. I just don't understand it. My aunt is suing me. Or threatening to, anyway. Her lawyer is demanding compensation for child care services rendered during what they're calling my extended guardianship period. They want 50% of my home's current market value. That's roughly $287,000. For 2 summers. 2 summers when I was 14 and 15 years old. I'm a marine biologist, an oceanographer, technically, and I've spent my career studying systems. Currents, ecosystems, the way one change ripples through an entire environment. I understand cause and effect on a molecular level. But this defies every logical framework I've ever built. Was I really that much of a burden? I was 14. I didn't ask to be sent there. Let me start from the beginning. The summers. My parents' divorce wasn't one of those quiet, civilized separations you read about. It was volcanic, the kind where lawyers become extended family members and your childhood home transforms into a war zone. I was 14 the summer it peaked, caught between 2 people who loved me but couldn't stand to look at each other, and by extension, couldn't quite figure out what to do with me. My mother's solution was to send me to her sister's house, 4 hours north, in a small coastal town that smelled like salt and pine. Just for the summer, she said. Until we sort things out. My father agreed, which should have told me something. They never agreed on anything anymore. I remember the drive up. My mother's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and she kept apologizing. Not for sending me away, exactly, but for everything. For the fighting. For the uncertainty. For making me feel like a chess piece in their game. Your aunt is wonderful, she said. She'll take good care of you. And she did. That's what makes this so complicated. My aunt lived in a weathered blue house with a wraparound porch and a view of the bay. She was in her early 40s then, married to a man who worked on fishing boats and was gone more than he was home. She had no children of her own, not by choice, I learned later, but by circumstance. Medical issues. Years of trying. The kind of grief that settles into your bones. That first summer, she taught me how to fish. Not the lazy, beer and boredom kind of fishing my father occasionally attempted, but real fishing. Understanding tides, reading weather patterns, knowing which spots held which species at which times. She taught me to clean and cook what we caught. She taught me that the ocean wasn't just water, it was a world. Some nights I wonder if I owe her more than I admitted. She did take me in when my parents couldn't handle me. She also taught me to be still. My parents' house had been constant chaos, shouting matches, slammed doors, the suffocating tension of 2 people destroying their marriage in slow motion. My aunt's house was quiet. Peaceful. She didn't ask me to take sides or carry messages. She just let me exist. We'd sit on her porch in the evenings, watching the water turn orange and pink as the sun set, and she'd tell me stories about growing up with my mother. Sisters who were close once, then drifted, the way families do. She never said anything bad about my parents, even when I wanted her to, even when I was so angry I could have screamed. They're doing their best, she'd say. Sometimes people's best isn't very good. But it's still their best. The second summer was more of the same. My parents' divorce had finalized, but the aftermath was still toxic. Custody battles, property disputes, endless legal wrangling. I was sent north again, and again, my aunt took me in without complaint. By then, she'd noticed my fascination with marine life. She bought me field guides, took me to tide pools, introduced me to a retired marine biologist who lived down the road. That man, gruff and brilliant and endlessly patient, became my first mentor. He wrote my recommendation letter for college 8 years later. I keep replaying those summers, looking for signs. Was she keeping score even then? I don't think so. I really don't. She seemed genuinely happy to have me there. She'd joke about having a summer son, about how I ate more than her husband did, about how she'd miss me when September came. When I left for college, she cried at my graduation party. When I got my first research position, she sent me a card that said she was proud of me. So what changed? Update 1. How we got here. 3 weeks since the lawyer letter. I need to explain what happened between those summers and now. 20 years is a lot of ground to cover. After high school, I went to the state university on scholarships and financial aid. My parents were both remarried by then, starting new families, moving on. I visited my aunt occasionally, holidays, summer weekends. She was always welcoming, always interested in my studies. Her husband was around less and less. Their marriage had grown thin, though I didn't know how thin until later. I worked my way through my bachelor's, then a master's, then a PhD. Marine biology isn't a lucrative field, but I was stubborn and passionate and willing to live on ramen for a decade. I did postdocs. I published papers. I built a reputation studying ocean acidification and its effects on coastal ecosystems. At 30, I got a tenure-track position at a university 3 hours from where I grew up. The salary wasn't enormous, but it was stable. More stable than anything I'd ever known. I saved aggressively, invested carefully, and 3 years ago, at 31, I bought a house. It's nothing fancy. A modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, with a small backyard where I've planted a garden. But it's mine. I paid for it with years of discipline and sacrifice, and I'm proud of it. My aunt's life, meanwhile, had taken a different trajectory. Her husband left her 6 years ago. Not for another woman, as far as anyone knows, he just left. Packed a bag one morning and drove away. No warning, no explanation, no forwarding address. After 30 years of marriage, he vanished like smoke. She was devastated. We all were, watching her try to piece together what remained. But worse was coming. Within a year, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, severe, aggressive, the kind that steals your ability to do the simplest things. Then lupus. Then complications from the medications meant to treat everything else. My therapist says I'm not responsible for her financial problems. Then why do I feel like I am? Her medical bills mounted. She had to stop working. Her savings evaporated, then her retirement fund, then the equity in her house. The blue house on the bay, the place where I'd learned to fish, where I'd found peace during the worst years of my childhood, was sold to pay debts. She moved into a small apartment. Then a smaller one. I sent money when I could. Not as much as she needed, maybe, but what I could spare. Birthday cards with checks. Contributions to medical fundraisers her church organized. I visited when my schedule allowed, which wasn't often enough. I know that now. I know that. The hints started about 2 years ago. Update 2. The escalation. 6 weeks since the lawyer letter. At first, it was subtle. Comments slipped into otherwise normal conversations. You know, she said during a phone call, I never did get compensated for those summers. Not that I'm complaining. But your parents just sent you and I took you in and that was that. I didn't know how to respond. You were family, I said. That's what family does. Yes, she agreed. That's what family does. But the comments kept coming. She'd mention opportunities she'd given up to care for me, a job offer in another city, a trip she'd planned to cancel. She talked about the food I'd eaten, the electricity I'd used, the wear and tear on her car from driving me places. She made it sound like I'd been a permanent resident rather than a summer guest. I changed my whole life for you, she said once. And I don't regret it. But sometimes I wonder if anyone noticed. I started to feel guilty. Not because I believed I owed her half my house, but because maybe I hadn't thanked her enough. Maybe I hadn't been sufficiently grateful. Maybe I'd taken those summers for granted, wrapped up in my own adolescent drama while she quietly sacrificed. Maybe I should have just given her something. Not half, but something. Would that have saved the relationship? I increased my financial contributions. I sent larger checks, more frequently. I called more often, drove up for weekend visits despite my workload. I thought I was being a good nephew. I thought we were okay. But it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. 8 months ago, she called me crying. Her rent had increased, her medications had gotten more expensive, and she didn't know how she was going to survive. I talked her through it, helped her find resources, sent what I could. Then she asked for $50,000. Just a loan, she said. You could take it out against your house. I'll pay it back. I said no. Gently, carefully, but no. I explained that I couldn't leverage my home for a loan that might never be repaid. I explained that I had my own financial obligations, student loans still being paid off, retirement accounts to build, the uncertain future of academic funding. I explained that I wanted to help but couldn't bankrupt myself doing it. She didn't take it well. After everything I did for you, she said, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. After I saved your life. Saved my life. You were falling apart when you came to me. Angry, scared, headed for trouble. I straightened you out. I gave you direction. I made you who you are. Was I falling apart? I don't remember it that way. I remember being sad. I remember being confused. But I don't remember being on the edge of destruction. Then again, maybe 14-year-olds don't have the best self-awareness. Maybe she saw things I couldn't see. Some nights I wonder if she's right. If she did save me. If those 2 summers really did make the difference between the person I became and someone else entirely. And if she did save me, what do I owe her for that? Update 3. The letter and the fallout. 2 months since the lawyer letter. The lawyer letter arrived on a Tuesday in March. I'd just gotten home from a research trip, 2 weeks on a vessel in the Pacific, studying bleached coral formations, and my mailbox was overflowing with the usual accumulated mess. Bills, junk mail, academic journals, and one crisp white envelope with a return address I didn't recognize. I read it standing in my kitchen, still wearing my coat, my bags unpacked on the floor. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. My aunt was demanding financial compensation for her role as my guardian and caretaker during my teenage years. She claimed she had never been fairly compensated for her sacrifices, and that my current financial success was a direct result of her intervention in my life. She wanted half my house, or the cash equivalent, within 60 days. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. She'd heard from her sister already, I realized. She knew what was coming. She's not well, my mother said. Physically, financially, emotionally. She's desperate. She's suing me. I know. For 2 summers, Mom. 2 summers. Silence. Then, she sees it differently. I don't know what I wanted from my mother in that moment. Outrage, maybe. Solidarity. Confirmation that I wasn't the villain my aunt was painting me as. Instead, I got neutrality. Understanding for both sides. A refusal to take a position. It felt like betrayal. It still does, honestly. My mother, who sent me to my aunt in the first place, who started this whole chain of events by being unable to handle her own child during her divorce, she couldn't even say I was right. Maybe I'm not right. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe there's no right here, just competing perspectives and decades of unspoken resentment. I hired a lawyer. Not because I wanted to fight, but because I didn't know what else to do. She reviewed the documents, asked me questions about those summers, and told me what I already suspected. My aunt had no legal case. I was a minor sent to stay with a willing family member during a family crisis. There was no contract, no promise of compensation, no guardianship agreement. What she did was kindness, not employment. You don't owe her anything, my lawyer said. Not legally. But what about morally? What about emotionally? What about the debt you accumulate when someone shows you kindness during the worst period of your life? The family split happened fast. Cousins I'd grown up with stopped returning my calls. My aunt's side of the family closed ranks. I was painted as the ungrateful nephew who got everything and gave nothing back, who abandoned the woman who'd saved him as soon as she needed saving herself. My mother tried to mediate. She arranged a phone call, my aunt and me, with her on the line as moderator. It lasted 12 minutes. All I want is fairness, my aunt said. I gave you everything when you had nothing. Now I have nothing, and you have everything, and you won't even share. I've been sending you money for years. Scraps. Pennies compared to what I'm owed. You're not owed. I am owed. Her voice cracked. I am owed something for my sacrifice. For giving up my chance at motherhood to raise someone else's child. For putting my own life on hold to fix the mess your parents made. It was 2 summers. It was everything. Those 2 summers were everything. The call ended with her hanging up. We haven't spoken since. Update 4. The quiet after. 4 months since the lawyer letter. The legal process, when it finally happened, was anticlimactic. My aunt's lawyer filed a formal claim. My lawyer responded with a motion to dismiss. There were some documents exchanged, some procedural back and forth that I didn't fully understand. Then it was over. My aunt's claim was dismissed. The judge noted the complete absence of any agreement, written or verbal, that suggested compensation was expected. The judge noted that my aunt had voluntarily hosted her nephew during a difficult time, as millions of family members do every day without expectation of payment. The judge noted that 20 years had passed, during which my aunt had apparently never raised this issue with anyone. I won. The lawyer confirmed I owe her nothing. So why does winning feel exactly like losing? I haven't spoken to my aunt in 4 months. I haven't spoken to most of her side of the family in nearly as long. My mother calls occasionally, updating me on news I didn't ask for. My aunt's health is declining, her apartment is too expensive, she's talking about moving to a care facility but can't afford a good one. She's scared, my mother said during our last call. She's 65 years old, she's sick, she's alone, and she's scared. I know. She's not a bad person. I know that too. And I do know it. That's what makes this so hard. My aunt isn't a villain. She's not greedy or manipulative or cruel. She's a woman who spent her life caring for others, her absent husband, her parents until they died, her summer nephew, and now she has nothing left. No children of her own. No savings. No health. No future she can see clearly. She looked at me and saw the one thing she'd invested in that had paid off. She looked at my house, my career, my stability, and she saw the return on her sacrifice. She thought she was entitled to collect. I understand that. I do. In her mind, she raised me. In her mind, those 2 summers shaped my entire life. In her mind, my success is her success, and my refusal to share it is the ultimate betrayal. But I can't agree with her. I worked for what I have. I sacrificed. I lived on nothing for years, took jobs I hated, made choices that were responsible instead of enjoyable. Those 2 summers helped me, yes, they gave me peace when I needed it, direction when I was lost. But they didn't build my career. They didn't earn my degrees. They didn't save for my down payment. I keep thinking about what would have happened if she'd just asked for help. Not demanded. Not hired lawyers. Not framed it as debt collection. If she'd called me and said, "I'm drowning and I need you," I would have found a way to help her. Maybe not half my house, but something substantial. Something real. Instead, she made it transactional. She turned our relationship into a balance sheet and decided I was in the red. And once you do that, once you put a price tag on love, there's no going back. Update 5. Final living with it. 6 months since the lawyer letter. I still have the letter. It's in a drawer now, underneath some old photographs and a birthday card she sent me years ago. The card has a whale on it, an inside joke from those summers, when I'd insisted that orcas were definitely whales and she'd insisted they were dolphins and we'd argued about it for an entire afternoon. She was right, technically. Orcas are the largest members of the dolphin family. But I'd been so certain. I was certain about a lot of things back then. I was certain my parents' divorce was the end of the world. I was certain I'd never forgive them. I was certain my aunt was the only adult who truly understood me. Now I'm 34, and I'm not certain about anything anymore. The other day, I was on campus late, working on a grant proposal that's due next week. The building was empty except for the custodial staff and a few other workaholics. I took a break, walked to the window, and looked out at the parking lot. Completely mundane. Utterly unremarkable. And I started crying. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the accumulated weight of everything I've been carrying. But I stood there in my empty office and cried like I hadn't since those summers, when I was a scared kid who didn't understand why his family was falling apart. My therapist says grief doesn't follow logic. You can grieve something even when you're right about it. You can mourn a relationship while knowing it had to end. You can miss someone who hurt you. I miss my aunt. I miss the woman who taught me to fish, who sat with me on her porch, who believed in me when I was too young and angry to believe in myself. That woman is still in there somewhere, I think. Buried under layers of pain and fear and desperation. But I can't reach her. And she can't reach me. The lawyers and the money and the accusations built walls that neither of us knows how to tear down. Last week, my mother told me my aunt had been hospitalized. Something with her heart, a complication, she said, from all the other complications. She's stable now but weak. Scared. She asked about you, my mother said. What did you tell her? That you're doing well. That you're working hard. That you think about her. I'm not sure that last part was true when my mother said it. But I do think about her. More than I want to admit. I think about writing her a letter. Not an apology. I don't believe I have anything to apologize for, but something. An explanation. A reaching out. A door left open. But what would I say? I forgive you for suing me, but I still won't give you what you want. I understand why you did it, but that doesn't make it okay. I love you, but I can't be the retirement plan you never built. Maybe there are no words for this. Maybe some fractures can't be healed with language. I won this fight. I kept my house, my savings, my financial stability. I protected what I built. But I lost my aunt. I lost my cousins. I lost a piece of my history and a part of my family that I'll never get back. Was it worth it? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Some nights, I dream about that blue house on the bay. In the dreams, I'm 14 again, sitting on the porch with my aunt, watching the water turn colors as the sun goes down. She's healthy and whole and happy. She tells me stories about my mother as a child. She laughs at my bad jokes. She promises that everything will be okay. And then I wake up, and I'm alone in a house I own outright, and the silence is absolute. I won. I was right. The law agreed with me. So why does being right feel like the loneliest thing in the world? Edit. Thank you all for the comments. I've read every one, even the harsh ones. A lot of you have asked what I'm going to do now, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Maybe time will clarify what courage can't. What I know is this: my aunt loved me once, in her way. I loved her too. That hasn't changed, even if everything else has. Some of you say I should write that letter. Some say I should walk away completely. Some say I should have given her the money just to keep the peace. But peace bought with coercion isn't peace. And love demanded under threat isn't love. Whatever my aunt and I had, it's gone now, not because I refused to pay, but because she made it clear that my value to her could be measured in dollars. She's drowning. I see that. She's grabbing at anything that might save her. I was the lifeboat she thought she'd built, and I sailed away when she needed me most. Or, she's drowning because she pushed away everyone who tried to help, and the lawyers and demands were the final shove that sent me beyond her reach. I don't know which story is true. Maybe they're both true. Maybe that's the problem. I keep thinking about something she told me during that second summer. We were sitting on the beach, watching a storm roll in over the water, and she said, "Family is the only thing that lasts. Everything else, money, houses, jobs, it all goes away eventually. But family stays." I wonder if she remembers saying that. I wonder if she'd say it differently now. I remember it, though. I remember everything about those summers. The good parts and the complicated parts and the parts that only started to hurt 2 decades later. I won. I'm legally and financially intact. I protected what I built. And I am so tired of winning. TLDR, my aunt took me in for 2 summers when I was a teenager and my parents were divorcing. She was kind and loving and helped shape my future. 20 years later, she's sick and broke and desperate, and she sued me for half my house as compensation for raising me. I won the case, but I lost my aunt and half my extended family. I don't know how to feel about any of it. Here's what I learned from being sued by the woman who taught me to fish. You can be completely right and still lose everything that matters. For 6 months I've been replaying those summers. Looking for signs. Trying to understand when kindness became currency, when love became a loan with interest accumulating in silence. I still don't have answers. Maybe there aren't any. My aunt wasn't a villain. That's what makes this unbearable. Villains are easy, you fight them, you win, you move on. She was a woman who took in a scared 14-year-old when his world was falling apart. She taught me patience. She gave me direction. She sat with me on her porch and let me exist without demanding anything in return. Or so I thought. Maybe she was keeping score even then. Maybe every meal she cooked, every trip to the tide pools, every quiet evening watching the sunset, maybe it all went into a ledger I didn't know existed. Or maybe the ledger only started when her life collapsed and she looked around for something, anything, that might save her. I'll never know. That's the hardest part. My therapist says I'm not responsible for her financial problems. She's right. I know she's right. I worked for everything I have. I lived on ramen for a decade. I sacrificed things she never saw. Those 2 summers helped me, yes, but they didn't earn my degrees, didn't write my papers, didn't save for my down payment. But knowing I'm right doesn't stop me from wondering, what if I'd just given her something? Not half my house. That was never reasonable. But something. Enough to show I remembered. Enough to acknowledge that those summers mattered. Would that have saved us? Or would it have just delayed the inevitable? Another demand, another disappointment, another lawyer letter? I keep coming back to what she said on the phone. Those 2 summers were everything. To her, maybe they were. Maybe taking care of me was the closest she got to motherhood. Maybe I was the child she couldn't have, the investment she made when everything else was failing. Maybe watching me succeed while she lost everything felt like a betrayal she couldn't name until it exploded. I understand that. I do. Understanding doesn't make it hurt less. She's in the hospital now. Heart problems. My mother says she asked about me. I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know if there's a letter I could write, a phone call I could make, that would bridge 20 years of silence and 6 months of lawyers. Some fractures can't be healed with language. Some relationships end not with a fight, but with a price tag that poisons everything it touches. She turned our history into a transaction. Once you do that, once you put a dollar amount on love, there's no going back. Not because the money matters, but because the asking changed everything. It told me that all those years, all those memories, all that kindness, it was conditional. It had terms and conditions I never signed. Family is the only thing that lasts, she told me once. Everything else goes away. But family stays. I wonder if she remembers saying that. I won my case. I kept my house. I protected what I built. And I am so tired of winning. Some nights I dream about that blue house on the bay. I'm 14 again, and she's healthy, and we're watching the water turn orange and pink. She tells me everything will be okay. Then I wake up alone in a house I own outright. The silence is absolute.